Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest installment of Trading Trenches. Basically, the whole idea behind this series is just to explore through the eyes of a random trader, in this instance, a skin trader. And for the people who know me, I'm, known to some extent by low-tier guys. I frequent a couple servers, I'm on and off, all sorts of fun stuff. And I try and keep my wits about me, and I try to keep my trading known. Try to sell some good stuff, get rid of the meh stuff. Like, I will admit, these things are crap. And battle-scarred and well-worn, for most purposes, are crap. However, there's a bigger issue in the community that plagues us, and that is getting from low tier in refined metal, low tier and refined, to getting to something like this. So now, everyone wants unusuals. Everyone wants good-looking stuff. You look at it, it looks cool. And your high-tier guys with hundreds of dollars worth in keys, they're going to argue saying, oh, it's Aces High, it doesn't look good. Whatever. I think it looks good. This is my unusual. Aces High Team Captain. A solid hat. But to get from the low tier to the high tier, and we'll just say all unusuals are high tier for the sake of argument, it requires transactions. Now, before we can really get into transactions, we have to understand supply and demand. In short, the better looking something is, the more useful something is, the more expensive it will be. So like this medigun, actually, let's take this team captain. We'll move everything over here right now. The difference between, we'll just move things around real quick. The difference between this team captain and this team captain is that this team captain can be made very easily using through refined metal and maybe a soldier slot token or whatever the crafting recipe is. If I'm wrong, the comment section will notify me. That's no big deal, and I'm fine with being wrong. But the difference between this and this is only a few particle effects, right? See, you got cards flying around your head and no cards, but they're still the same hat. Now that's right, but it's not the full truth. The truth of the matter is that there's a lot less of these than there are of these. To give you a perspective, and this is not necessarily correct, but for every one of these unusuals exist, there's probably this many, if not more, of these normal team captains. So imagine, instead of this being all refined metal, it was just all team captains. And so the way it works is that if demand for this is high, but supply is a little bit low, or lower than the supply of normal team captains. And the demand for a team captain it's lower than the demand of an unusual team captain, but the supply is much higher than, because of the supply being higher and the demand being lower, this will be of lower value than the lower in supply, higher in demand, unusual variant of the same hat. And this is well understood. This is supply and demand. Everyone should have a reasonable understanding of what it is. Now, to get from the high tier, or to get from the low tier, quote-unquote, to the high tier, we always have this transition from low tier stuff, refined metal, hats, skins, we can take something else, stranges, genuines, anything really. And this stuff, which is priced in refined metal, the quote-unquote low-tier currency, has to be exchanged into keys. Now, this is a good system, so long as a few things are true. Number one, and we'll get into this later, there's a reserve currency. There's something in the background that is known, people use outside of this economy. And this economy is pretty isolated in a sense, but keys, and thus unusuals, and to some extent skins, to some extent, granted, are backed by US dollars, euros, anything that's accepted on, guess what, of all places, the Steam market. If you go on the Steam market, you can buy whatever you want, or whatever people are willing to sell. And on the Steam community market, it's very easy to get Mann Co supply crate keys using real money, which is good. But if you turn and say refined metal, you get vintage refined metal, but there's very few of these. You really can't use them. There's no inflation rate of them, and they do exist. It's just $500 for vintage refined metal. Who's going to buy that? Apparently 38 people, but for half the price, but that's not here nor there. That's a collector's item. But there's no direct transition between our reserve currency, US dollars, euros, whatever, to refined metal. And so this doesn't seem like a problem. We're trading stuff that isn't backed by the US dollar for something that is backed by the US dollar. But there is a problem. See, as you play TF2, you get item drops. Earlier in TF2's history, you could get item drops very quickly. So, playing your game, shoot people, going around, being a Santa hoovy, going around Frenchman with a grim tweeter on his back, whatever, doing your thing, doing your spy thing, healing some people, being a good Samaritan. And then you get an item drop. And you get another item drop. And you get another. Now your item drops tend to be a few things. They can be weapons. They could be hats. They could be name tags, description tags. It used to be that keys could drop. Not anymore, of course. But a lot of stuff drops. And that's fine. But the problem is that refined metal doesn't drop itself, but there is something that does. Weapons. Your unlocks. These are actually usable. But let's say I have 5 enforcers, or 8 amputators. You can turn them into scrap metal. Then you can eventually turn that scrap metal into reclaimed metal. Turn that reclaimed metal into refined metal. And that's all fine and dandy. Because the whole idea is that if you have a bunch of extra weapons, you can come in here, common items. Oh, I want a holy mackerel. Here's reclaimed metal and a sandman. And then boom, now I have a holy mackerel. But this system is long broken. It's been long broken for a simple myriad of problems, but the chief thing is we can trade. Simply put, web browser, scrap.tf. Anyone in the community knows what this is, and we know what this is. Let's say we want weapons. We buy weapons. We go over here, we want a Hugo long heater, escape plan, scorch shot, and beggar's bazooka. Okay, that's cool. And whatever, this item is hidden because you cannot purchase it. Probably just different bot, that's fine. But we can buy it for 2 scrap. That's the same as if we were to scrap all 4 of these into the metal in the first place. It doesn't cost us extra. That's all good. But keep in mind, there's an inherent problem just by looking at scrap.tf alone. There we have 10 panic attacks in stock, 120 holiday punches, 62 rain blowers, 70 soda poppers, only 9 enforcers, 6 big earners, but there's a collector's enforcer, collector's big earner, so if someone does get a collector's, it's not surprising that they would buy out a lot. But 120 holiday punches, how much refined metal is that worth? Let's say we throw in 20 of them. 20 of them is, actually, 18 of them is 9 scrap. And the conversion rate's pretty simple. 3 scrap metal turns into 1 reclaimed. 3 reclaimed turns into 1 refined. Which results in, when you do the conversion, 9 scrap metal turns into 1 refined. So 18 holiday punches, 18 of these weapons, all scrapped, equals a refined metal. Everyone knows this, pretty simple math, no big deal. But if you pull out your handy dandy calculator, if scrap.tf alone owns 120 of these holiday punches, 120 divided by 18, that's 6.66 refined metal. So, 6 of these and 2 of these. It's not a lot, but consider this. Scrap.tf is the place where excess weapons go to die, effectively. Where the community's excess weapons are turned into something that we can use, something that we want to use, and that is metal. And that metal we can go over to, no, not scrap, backpack.tf, and go over here, buy yourself another team captain for 7 refined. And that's all good. But as more and more people play, and as the years go on, more drops happen, refined metal is consistently brought into the world, but since crafting really isn't used to make weapons, and if you craft 3 refined metal, you're not guaranteed a team captain, which is worth 7, but if we look up Prancer's Pride. Okay, very nice Dr. Seuss reference for the pyro. I wouldn't say it's a bad hat, it's nice and Christmassy. 1.1 to 1.22 refined. So, 1 of these bad boys, and 1 to 2 of these. Huh. But it requires 3 of these to make 1 of these, right? But it also takes 3 of these to make 1 of these. But why would I risk 3 refined metal to turn into only 1 in value? So the problem is that there's a lot of inflation, but there's no reduction in the supply. And oh, it looks like the supply of this is more than this. And we come back to our initial team captain comparison. If there's hundreds of these, but only a few dozen of these, this is going to be a lot more valuable than this. And because keys are consumable, and they will be consumed very soon in vast quantities due to the Halloween update, and maybe the price is just surging due to Halloween, but I wouldn't bet all my money on that. Keys have been going up year after year after year. And it took some hefty market manipulation by the guys over at scrap.tf to bring it down at one point, to bring down the key price to help the economy go. But they can't do that forever. They can't. The losses are too great. And even if the losses aren't too great and they can do it whenever they want, and they could do it forever, and they could stagnate the price, I'm guaranteeing you they're not going to do it forever. And personally, I wouldn't want scrap.tf to have that type of power to control key price whenever they want. And sure, you can argue it's a monopoly, it should be shut down, whatever. Personally, I think scrap.tf is a great site, and please don't shut it down. Same thing with backpack.tf, even though it is owned by the same guy. It just makes trading easier. And keep in mind what happens when trading hits a brick wall. It comes back to the market. Someone wants to cash out, they sell everything that they have for Mann Co supply crate keys. So if it's a low tier item, they sell it for refined metal and change that refined metal into keys. But the problem is with that system is the exchange rate of refined metal to keys. It takes 40 refined, almost a full backpack page, which is only 50 slots. 40 of these slots have to be filled with refined metal to equal 1 key. And that's a problem. Old players who are quitting, or whatever, aren't really getting as much bang out of their buck. And is it really a problem for us? Yes and no, no and yes. Some people, they sell out their backpack and they don't come back. But others sell out their backpack and then they come back after a while, they trade up and then sell again. But every time these repeat sellers come up, they get less and less for their work. And they might as well just stop playing the game. It's not really worth it to be worth less your work each and every time. So experienced players who come in, build up, and sell off their stuff aren't really worth it. And to give you a sense of how much is required to put into a key, if you do the math real quick, for every weapon you make, you can only make half a scrap. So that happens. Then divide that by 3 to make a reclaim. Then divide that by 3 again to make a refined. And then divide by 40 to get to your Mann Co supply crate key, which can possibly turn into some actual cold hard cash on the Steam market. Possibly. To turn into Steam games, to turn into fun. But that requires at least from the drop system, for every key you get from the drop system, that would have required 720 of these bad boys to drop. And when you put that in the perspective of pages, that's 14.4 pages. So all the way up to here, and then 40, or actually not 40, a little less than 25 of those slots would also be filled. So 14 pages, and on the 15th page, that'd be about 20 of them would be filled. So that's a lot, and that's just from the drop system. So we don't necessarily need the drop system to go directly into keys, but what we do need is to allow old players to want to come back. But old players coming back isn't a huge deal. There's something more pressing, something more intense. And it's really hard to see at the beginning, but we always need something. We always need something out there, something cool, something that some people don't like. We need new players. Always. These proud people who come in, they play our game, they get their mercenary badge, and they enjoy the game. But then, if we attract 10 players at any given day, and they enjoy the game, but out of every 10 players, only one becomes premium, then out of 1,000 players, and only 10% come in and stay with us, spend money, that's still 100 players who come in, spend money, and get better at the game. But I think we can make that number better. And if we make that number better, we entice newer players to get into trading, which can lead into them buying into the Steam community market, which gives you, Valve, money through fees and whatnot. I propose a solution. And the solution's pretty simple. Let's take this item as a placeholder. And in this little string of conversions, let's ignore the weapons for right now. We'll put them over here. That's fine. We'll put them over here. But here's my suggestion. We have the existing. The existing is weapons to refined, or weapons to scrap, to reclaimed, to refined, to keys. But before passing the sniper rifle here, everything up to this point has no connection to the US dollar or any backing currency. My suggestion is the introduction of a new tier of metal. Something that is made of exactly not 3, not 6, not 6, forgive me, not 8, but 10 refined metal should turn into a new type of metal, purified metal. And this purified metal, or elemental metal, whatever you want to call it, should have one property different from refined metal. And that difference is simply, it's marketable. So instead of coming on here, buying a bunch of keys, getting on here, selling them for whatever it is, exchange rate changes, people get angry, they leave, you have a set price. This is what it can be turned into. And the price changes here, but it doesn't change how many of these can turn into money. And what this does is it does a few things. Number one is it compresses refined metal down from 10 slots to 1, increasing your backpack space for at least refined metal by a factor of 10. So if I have 2 pages of refined metal, pages 1 and 2, and I divide that by 10, so 100 pieces of refined metal can be stored in only 10 backpack spaces, which saves space. And if I can take that metal, that new purified or elemental refined metal, whatever you want to call it, I'll call it purified from now on. Actually, no, I'll call it elemental because it's less apt to be confused with refined. So if we take this elemental refine, or this elemental metal, and we make it marketable, you're tying metal directly, or at least more directly, into the backup currency of US dollars. And if someone comes on here, they take all this, put it on the market, they sell it. That's nice, but since there's a lot of this in existence, and just to give you how much, let's go into backpack.tf and we'll have the automated system do the work. Come on. whoops. If we go into here, there's approximately 5.5 million refined metal in existence. If we were to divide that by 10, that's only 545,000 would exist if we turned every single bit of refined metal. So you take this amount and you divide by 10. It doesn't change how much is in circulation. You just change how it's stored, which is nice. And you tie it more directly into US dollars, which is important. But the plan has one more thing. To actually make this take off and reduce this exchange rate from refined metal to keys, and to help new players actually get into it by giving them something that is worth more. Whatever the drop system provides, weapons, metal directly, whatever, it needs to be cheap enough so that they can play the game without sinking too many hours in. And with our current exchange rate of 720 weapons to a key, and we assume that each game, and keep in mind you only get about a weapon per game, ignoring any hat drops or name tag drops or whatever, and we multiply that by about 10 minutes. Let's say they play 10-minute games, which is really short. That's assuming they roll all the time. They really decimate the enemy team. And we divide that number by 60, so that's now in hours. So translate that from 7,200 minutes into hours. Divide that into days. At the current exchange rate, to create one key would require 5 straight days of playing the game. And that's to assume every single game is successful in rolling the enemy team where there's very little resistance and you win within 10 minutes or less. It still takes you 5 days, which is a lot of time to sink in. And a lot of people have sunk in over 2,000 hours, which is petty change compared to this, but 700 or 120 hours just to get a key? You need to increase the pace. People aren't going to buy in unless you make it easier to get in the first place. But then again, at that point it's speculation in my own opinion. However, making it easier to make this jump from low tier to high tier would allow more people to get into the game, get into the trading, and get hooked by the trading and the gameplay to stay in for longer. And like being in a grocery store, the longer you are in the grocery store, the more of a chance you will buy more stuff. And ultimately, for Valve, making money is priority. They're a business, and that's respectable. But this game, I want to see it shine. I want it to see it live. So how do we do this? Well, besides the implementation of an elemental metal, making 10 refined into an elemental metal, we go into the store, in this shop, and over here we have nice Saxton Hale. Picture this with me now. Saxton Hale providing an offer that you cannot refuse. Turn in your old smelted weapons, refined metal, into hats, weapon skins, war paints, stranges, exclusive from the Mann Co store. Cannot be unboxed, cannot be bought. They're marketable, they're tradable. The only thing is, they can only be brought into existence by the Mann Co store. And sure, you could also trade in unusuals, perhaps, and this is more of an off idea. At this point you can stop listening. But maybe take certain unusuals, maybe I don't know, nuts and bolts, unusuals, who knows, and turn them directly into keys. That would be nice. But then again, that at this transition I would not recommend personally, but that would be something to kick around, think about it. Maybe high tier traders would think about it and say yes, no, no, yes. Or maybe taking team captains or maybe taking unusuals and making them into craftables and combine unusuals with refined metal to make new unusual effects on new hats or old hats or whatever, but not discontinued hats, of course. Nothing to do with the discontinueds. But in short, we need two things. We need a middleman between keys and refined by taking refined and turning it into something that is craftable this way and craftable that way. 10 refined metal crafted into elemental metal, and elemental metal can be turned into refined, refined into reclaimed, reclaimed into scrap, scrap into whatever. Without changing any of this, none of this really has to change. Maybe a more friendly looking crafting thing would be nice, but I'm not going to expect that. I'm not going to put too much on the plate, but I only wish two things. A new elemental metal that is marketable, that can go onto the Steam community market, and Saxton Hale taking refined metal and turning it into new items, maybe just taken right from the community and thrown onto the game. New war paints, new hats, whatever. But that doesn't stop you from adding in crates with some of the most upvoted stuff and saying, oh yeah, throw a key at it. I'm fine with that. The community's fine with that in a sense. But here's the glory. I'm not suggesting that you throw on this update and forget about it. What I'm suggesting is very simple. In all skins, you've had collections. You've had various collections, do whatever. But you add in a new collection, Trade Up Series number 1. In the Trade Up Series, there's new war paints, they all look good, whatever. You throw in refined metal, let's say you throw in 5, and you're guaranteed a treat. That treat could be civilian, freelance, mercenary, commando, whatever. But if instead of 5, I throw in 10, you're guaranteed that whatever you're going to get, it can't be battle scarred. It's going to be well worn or better. But if you throw in 15 or 20, it's going to be field tested or better. And simply put, the argument is that we want to take this refined metal amount and we want to slash it. We want to decrease the overall amount of refined metal in circulation, and we want to increase how much people want it, causing mass deflation. And maybe this is a little rough. Maybe 5 refined metal for a new war paint, and you don't have that increasing chances with whatnot. Just say 5 refined metal, you get a treat. And that would be very easy, and that would be very simple, and I'd be fine with that. I think the community would be fine with that. You take your 5 refined metal, trade it in, you get a little prize. And I think it would work fine. There are, of course, many variations to work around with it. Personally, I would play around with it. Play around with the math, get out your geek, your calculator, maybe hire a mathematician, do whatever, figure it out. But I think it can be done. And the community has plenty of content to pick from for rewards. But there is something more important. There's something more pressing. communication. Valve, you don't have to give us an update. You don't have to give us new weapons, new MVM stuff. You don't have to give us beautiful works of art. You don't have to bring in new Halloween things. But whatever you do, I want to see one Valve employee live streaming with another Valve employee writing down questions that come in from here, or update released. We're having an open talk with the community, or on Twitter, on Facebook, just something. TF2 dev team, talk to the community. You don't have to tell us every time a new update is in the works, or a new thing here, a new thing. Just talk to us. Maybe have a little Twitter that says TF2 community, show us your most crazy screenshots from the last week. And then we send in screenshots. Something playful. It doesn't have to be always serious, but put a face. Make heavy. Make heavy be the reason why you talk to us. If we need heavy weapons guy, if you met heavy weapons guy in real life, yeah, he'd be a big, tall, monstrous amount of meat, and he wouldn't necessarily kill us in an instant, but I'm willing to bet he would enjoy a nice little chat, couple laughs, maybe shooting at a couple spies, but be like Heavy. You made this character. Be like the character you made, and that is communicate. Use your smarts. I have no doubt that the TF team that did all of this, these nice, beautiful updates, these unusuals, these stranges, these Australians, festivizers, skins, bad, and also extraordinarily good. But Valve, I think it can be done. Reduce refined metal by having a trade-in with Saxton Hale, your representative, ya boy, Saxton Hale. Or Heavy comes up with new ways to design his weapon, or repair weapons, or do whatever. And if you want to make things interesting, like an unusual, there's a small chance for when you trade in refined metal for a treat that it comes out strange. Or just have it all civilian grade, whatever. Thank you, Valve, for your time. Thank you, TF2 community, for listening in. I know this was probably a longer video, but share it, like it, subscribe it. I'm a small YouTuber. I try to make small content, but hey, I want to see this game thrive. It's 2018. It's October 14th, 2018 at 9:32 p.m. But this soldier main, this lover of Heavy, lover of medic, absolute despiser of spies everywhere, I want to see Heavy weapons guy. I want to see a Heavy update. I want to see a metal muncher update. But communicate to us, Valve, what you're doing, and may the next update come out, and may it be a good one. Maybe add in a few badges, or maybe add in a little reset button. It's the little details. And if the next update is simply we add in a reset button for your casual badge, sure, it's a small update. It doesn't have to be big and flashy, but that little update helps. Or maybe, because Mann Co supply crate keys technically can be craftable, bundles of keys. 10 keys bundled up into one. Just a little thing of 10 keys, that's it. It can be changed back into keys or used to unlock piles of crates. I think it exists as a pile of keys, just make it craftable. Anyways, thank you for watching, God bless, and don't get random crit too often. Thank you for watching, like, share, subscribe, etc. I hope you have a good day, and cap that intel, damn it.